What a joy it is to continue our study in the book of Jeremiah. Our scripture reading today is actually two chapters, Jeremiah chapter 45 and 46. Now, our study will be broken into two different video devotionals. So this will be the first, Jeremiah chapter 45. The second video devotional that will follow will be Jeremiah chapter 46. Well, let's turn in our Bibles to Jeremiah chapter 45. And here the title of today's Bible study is this: An Answer for Gloom, Despair, and Agony on Me. That is, an answer for gloom, despair, and agony on me. Well, Jeremiah chapter 45. Well, having concluded his last prophetic message to the remnant of Judah that fled to Egypt, Jeremiah's chronological narrative was interrupted for a brief chapter. You'll notice in Jeremiah chapter 45 that it recalls an earlier discourse between the prophet and Baruch, who served as Jeremiah's scribe. Now, the setting of the conversation we find was between Jeremiah and Baruch, and it came, chapter 45 and verse 1, in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah. Now, for context, Jehoiakim was a king who cast the prophecies of Jeremiah into a fire in Jeremiah 36. Now, two kings would follow Jehoiakim. He was succeeded by his son Jehoiachin, who reigned for 3 months, and then Zedekiah, who was Jehoiakim's brother and would be the last king of Judah. Now, in chapter 36, he was penning the revelation concerning the destruction of Jerusalem a second time. Now, by he, I'm referring to Baruch, who was Jeremiah's scribe. And we find in this chapter 45 that Baruch was so overwhelmed by the prophecies against Jerusalem and Judah that he groaned in his spirit. Discouraged and visibly shaken by God's imminent judgment, the scribe found himself serving a prophet who was unpopular and imprisoned. Now, consider then chapter 45. And I would ask you to look at the first 3 verses where we're introduced again to Baruch, a faithful but discouraged servant. Now, we notice then that the Lord had called and ordained Jeremiah to be his prophet to Judah in chapter 1. However, a man named Baruch served as the prophet's scribe. Now, though Jeremiah was the spokesman for the Lord, it was his scribe whom God used to preserve his words for all generations. Knowing Jeremiah was despised by the king and the people of Judah, imagine being Baruch. He chose to associate himself with God's prophet, though Jeremiah was hated, persecuted, and occasionally imprisoned. Perhaps too busy with his duties or on sufferings to notice, the Lord revealed to Jeremiah that Baruch was discouraged in chapter 45, verses 1 through 3. And so the prophet confronted Baruch with his own words, and he said, Baruch, and I quote, "I'll just say, woe is me now, for the Lord hath added or increased grief to my sorrow. I fainted in my sighing, my distress, and I find no rest." Baruch, are those your words? Are those your sentiments? Well, hearing the words of the prophecy and penning them for the historical record, Baruch fell into a state of melancholy. The personal pronouns I highlighted in verse 3 revealed a man focused on himself. Baruch was discouraged and overwhelmed, and Jeremiah 45 verse 3 exposed the spirit of a man whose zeal had waned because he lost sight of God's sovereignty. Notice then a loving reproof in chapter 45 and verse 4 and 5. Now the Lord instructed Jeremiah to minister to Baruch and instruct him not to place his hope and affections on temporal earthly things. In fact, we read in verse 4, thus shalt thou say, Jeremiah, unto Baruch, the Lord saith thus, behold, that which I have built, will I, that is the Lord, will I not break down, and that which I have planted will pluck up, tear away, even this whole land? Baruch was looking at Jerusalem and looking at the beauty of the temple and the city and the thought of the things that he was writing and the prophecies of God's judgment against it had overwhelmed him. And so the Lord confronts Baruch through his prophet, and he says, did I not build it? And if I did, as sovereign God, I have the right to destroy it. What I want to build, what I want to pull down, what I planted, I have the right to pluck up. Why? Because I am God. Now, you see, those words reminded Baruch that the Lord is sovereign, and he does that which he pleases him and his purpose. He had the right and authority to build up, to tear down, and no man should question his will. And the Lord determined that the temple would be burned, the palaces destroyed, and the city of Jerusalem laid waste. Why? Because of the sins and wickedness of the people. It was his covenant. He would bless them if they obeyed his law and commandments, and if they did not, he would judge them. Well, look at verse 5. And here we have a promise of hope and life. Now, when we first read Jeremiah 45 and verse 5, it seems to be an unnecessary rebuke of a faithful scribe until we understand the context. Now, the Lord challenged Baruch through Jeremiah, and I quote, and seekest thou great things for thyself? Or Baruch, are you striving for great things for yourself? And then the Lord's rebuke, seek them not. For behold, I will bring evil upon all flesh, saith the Lord. But thy life will I give unto thee for a prey in all places, whither thou goest. Another way of putting it, Baruch, are you striving and seeking things for yourself? Why, the things that you see and the things that you set your eyes upon, I will bring evil upon this place. I will bring affliction and adversity. But if you'll be faithful, Baruch, I'll spare your life. It will be a prey in all places whither thou goest. Think about that for a moment. How often we might think that the grass is greener somewhere else, only to find in abandoning our place of service and ministry, we actually put ourselves in a place that will ultimately be a curse to us. Baruch, don't seek great things for yourself. Seek them not. Well, the shadow cast by Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon's army engulfed the known world of Baruch's day. There was no escaping the evil and path of destruction that was coming. However, though everything he had known would be destroyed, Baruch was assured his life would be spared. Well, a closing thought for Jeremiah 45, and then following this, we'll have a second one, Jeremiah 46. But here's a closing thought for Jeremiah 45. Jeremiah counseled Baruch not to sacrifice God's calling for promotion or personal aspirations. Perhaps in his discouragement, he might have considered another occupation than serving as Jeremiah's scribe. Maybe there was a better offer. After all, who wants to serve someone who's cast into prison, he's persecuted, and you might even feel that while serving with him even endangers your life? After all, for Baruch, his association with the prophet must have invited the disapproval of his family and friends. Perhaps he even had a greater opportunity, as I've already said, for a more rewarding career. But Jeremiah admonished Baruch not to fall prey to seeking great things for thyself. You know, it is easy to focus on the immediate cost of serving the Lord and fail to recognize the greater risk should we disobey him. Should Baruch have abandoned Jeremiah to pursue riches and fame, he would have experienced the loss of everything, and perhaps even his life. You see, the Lord promised to give Jeremiah's scribe something greater than fame and promotion: life. The Lord said, Baruch, thy life will I give unto thee for a prey in all places whither thou goest. Well, my friend, I close by asking you, what are you seeking? Remember that riches and possessions and titles and fame perish. However, in the Lord, life is forever. In Matthew 6 and verse 19 through 21, we read these words, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." My dear friend, where is your treasure? Thank you for being a part of Heart of a Shepherd. This devotional will be followed by Jeremiah chapter 46. I hope that you will continue watching it. God bless you and bye-bye.